Hi, it's Christy with Prairie Quilts, and I wanted to share a quick video with y'all today on how to use your new ScanNCut that you may have got for Christmas, or if you've had one previously, on how to cut material with fusible on the back. So today I brought over my fabric with my fusible, and the one that I have on the back of this is Steam Seam Light 2, and I like it if I'm going to be layering several things and I don't have an iron handy. I like to use it so I can get them all layered up and set the block aside and move on to the next one and create multiples before I go hit it with the iron. It saves time and makes things faster. And then I also want to talk to you about the mats and what mat I use and what I use on my mat. So let's get started. So I showed you my fabric that has the fusible on the back, and I told you that it's the Steam Seam Light 2 on this one. I do like Brothers product that they have out, their applique iron-on. However, it's not sticky and tacky, so if you're trying to layer them up and setting your blocks aside, it doesn't work. My mat that I have with me today is a standard mat. And to cut your fabric, you need to have your high-tack fabric sheet on it. Now, if you're new to this and you got a brand new ScanNCut 2 recently in your box, there were 2 sheets with green backings, and that's what those are, high-tack fabric sheets. If you don't have any, we have them here at the store, and if you are nervous about putting it on your mat and getting ready, bring your mat with you if you have one, and I'd be glad to help you put it on, or one of the girls in the shop. So today I have my fabric tack sheet on. If you see, it's really sticky, it holds to my hand, and that's what you have to have. It needs to have that ability to be able to hold your fabric still so that it doesn't wiggle when you're cutting. So when you're using your fabric with the fusible, with the paper, you want to be sure and put your fabric side down. Okay, you never want to put paper on your high-tack fabric sheet, because if you do, the paper is going to stay and your high-tack fabric sheet is going to be junk, and then you'll need to replace it. So never put paper on your high-tack fabric sheet. So as you see here, I have stuck my fabric on my sheet, and I have the paper side up, and I do leave the paper on. Some people say paper off, but definitely with the Steam Seam Light 2, since it's tacky, you want to leave that on because it kind of catches the knife because it is sticky. So now I'm going to get into the machine and show you a few things about the machine before we cut our pieces. So with the machine, we have a blade, and we have blade settings. It goes up to 12. So this will cut pretty deep. However, with it being new and out of the box, most machines cut at a 4. Now I'll show you when I get to the screen, there's a place to do a test cut, so that when you get ready to cut, you want to be sure and do that to make sure that your blade is for sure a 4 and not maybe 4 1/4 or a little less than a 4. But I know with this machine, since I've cut with it, it's a perfect 4 coming right out of the box. So the machine here will do patterns or scan, and today we're going to go into patterns to cut a piece. So I'm going to click pattern. And if you go into these, if you notice that there's several things on the screen. You have just your basic shapes, and there's 12 pages of those that you can use. There's many different ones. Then we have our fun shapes, that if you go into these, if you look at this, these are folders, and then you click on it and you go into it, there's more shapes. So just look at these as folders, open your folder, and look at all the shapes that it has. It has words that you can cut out, has letters, borders, some fun little borders. So those are some things you can play around with and get more comfortable with your machine. Then if you go to page 2, you'll notice there's quilt blocks, and inside each one of these, of course, like a folder, you'll see more quilt blocks. These are applique blocks, and this is where I wanted to cut from. I'm making some blocks now currently that are using some of these fun little things in this applique series, and the blocks turn out really nice. So I'm going to go to, let's see, let me find one I'm happy with. But I haven't done. Let's go to this one right here. If you notice, it tells you the height and the width of the design, and you can adjust that right here. And by adjusting it by hitting the plus or the minus at this stage, it adjusts it proportionably. Now when you go in and you get your design brought up, you can change that. If you want it more oblong or however, you could change that. But I'm going to leave it where it is. And if you notice here on the screen, this flower has 3 parts, and it's broke down into 3 perfect parts. You can start with cutting part A, and then it will ask you at the end to go to B, and then further on to C. So I'm going to start with A. Now, as I told you before that the design was set and that you could change it later, this is where you could do some of that, or you can tell it the number of pieces that you want to cut. And I only want to cut 1, so I'm going to leave it to 1. So there I have it on my mat. Now I'm going to load my mat, and you want to be sure and load your mat where the mat touches the rubber things they have right here. Touch it to where it's snug up against it, and then you want to hit your load button. That is your load button to load your mat. And I'm just going to make sure that's smoothed down and stuck really nice on the mat. This button right here is the scan button. And if you notice, I have cut out of my fabric through here. So I want to be sure and not cut over that again. So I'm going to use the scan feature to find the perfect place on my fabric to cut. Okay, now looking on my screen, and it may be tough for you, but I do have a circle here and a stem that I previously cut out, and it's showing right here on my screen. So I need to move my little flower over out of the way so that I don't cut on one of those areas. So now I have it moved. Now before I cut my fabric, I want to take you into tools, because I showed you that we have a blade depth. This machine also has a blade pressure, so that it puts an amount of pressure on here if you're cutting through thicker pieces of fabric, or if you're cutting through some puffy foam or cardstock. The pressure settings are all different. So let's go into settings. And on page 2, you're going to have a cut speed and a cut pressure. And for fabric, regular cotton fabric with some fusible, I like the cut pressure to be at a 4, and I believe that's what it says on the cheat sheet that comes with your machine also. And we need to slow the speed down to a 1. So I'm happy with where I've got my flower, and I'm happy with my settings. So I'm going to say OK. And let's cut. Okay, our fabric is cut. Now if you notice on the screen here, it says select next part or finish. If you were going to go on with your next piece of fabric, you would hit select next part, and you would hit the second piece, and you'd say okay. Then you would load your mat with your second color and cut it, and so forth until you get all your flowers made. So that my flower is cut, I'm going to take it off the mat and show you what we've done. So right here, as you see, I have a perfect cut flower ready for applique and to put on my block. Okay, now that we've cut our flower, you're ready to make your blocks. I hope this tutorial helps you out in cutting some fabric with fusible and getting you ready to do some applique. So thanks for watching.